Okay guys, we're gonna look at math lesson 12-2, measure with inches. Our I can statement is I can estimate measures and use a ruler to measure length and height to the nearest inch. All right, so in this lesson, we'll be using one of these. And I put up a printable version on the grade link page that your parents can print out if you don't have one of these at home. And we're using the inches side, so that's going to be these bigger marks. Okay, we'll take care of solve and share on Zoom. For now, let's just look at the boxes at the top of page 700. And our friend tells us that you can measure the length and height of an object in inches. So what is height? Height is how tall something is. And here's how we would measure. He tells us you would start measuring from the 0 mark on the ruler. That's going to be right here, this mark before the number 1. Mine doesn't say 0. Sometimes they're going to say 0. You would put the object here first and start going towards the numbers. Okay? So to measure to the nearest inch, you're going to look for the halfway mark. And you'll see this on every kind of ruler. All right, this line, a little bit longer between the two numbers, that's the halfway mark. All right, if an object is longer than the halfway mark, you would go ahead and round up to the bigger number. And if it's shorter than the halfway mark, so if the number goes about here but not quite the number, you would go up to the number. And if your measurement, if your object is less than the halfway mark, you would go with a smaller number. So I'm going to show you some examples. All right, I have this turquoise rectangle. Let's see, I'm going to line up the edge to the beginning of the ruler. Do it that way. And it looks like it's more than 1 inch, okay, but it's not quite 2 inches, and it doesn't go up to the halfway mark here. So I wouldn't call that about 2 inches, I'd call it about 1 inch, because it's closer to the 1 inch mark. All right, let's take a look at this paperclip. I'm going to line up the end of the paperclip to that beginning of the ruler, and we're not quite at 2 inches, but we are past the halfway mark between 1 and 2. So I'm going to go with a bigger number and say that this is about 2 inches. It's closer to the 2 inch mark than it is the 1 inch mark. Okay. And then let's go ahead and look at the guided practice number 1. My notepad doesn't look the same as the one in the picture, but I'm going to estimate that this is probably about 12 inches. And to measure it, I'll go ahead and I'll line up the beginning of the ruler, the 0 mark, to the top of the notepad, go all the way down, and you can see that it is past that halfway mark. So it's about 11 inches. Not quite, it's not close enough to the 12 that I would call it 12 inches. Maybe I'd call it 12. But that's how we would measure something like that. So this would be about a foot long. Okay, now let's measure something else around here. Here, I have Nate the Great, world's greatest detective, and I want to see how tall this is. That means I'm going to stand it up, and I want to see how tall that is. So I'm going to do the same thing. You'll put the edge of the book right there at the 0 mark, and looks like we're going to end past the halfway mark between 8 and 7. So I'd say that's probably about 8 inches. About 8 inches tall, maybe 7.5 inches tall is what I would call it. Okay, now let's say I wanted to measure the whole notebook like that, right? I want to measure the whole thing across. How would you do this? Okay, I know I'm going to use my ruler tool, and what I would do is I would start with the 0 mark, right? I'm going to have to hold the ruler upside down for this, but for the 0 mark, I would start it at the edge of the ruler, or at the edge of the notebook, go all the way to this end of the ruler, right? Remember that your ruler ended right there, and then slide on over. And now the beginning of the ruler, we're going to move that to where it ended. Put that 0 mark right there, and then you can keep on measuring that way. And add on the number of inches. Okay, for independent practice, it wants you to find objects, make an estimate about the length of the object, and then actually measure it with your ruler. So if you don't have that object at your house, use a similar object or just something that's similar to it, and then write it on your paper that you use that object instead of whatever it told you. So if you don't have a paintbrush at home, use something else. You could use a marker or a crayon, a fork or a spoon, something else. Okay, and we'll go over more of this on Zoom. Before we leave, what are you supposed to do if the thing you're trying to measure is longer than the ruler, longer than 12 inches or 1 foot? You would go to the end of where your ruler, the point where your ruler ended, and start over. You would put the beginning of the ruler where that ruler ended, and just add on. All right, if you have questions, remember to sign into the Zoom for Thursday, and we'll go over some of the worksheet there. Okay, bye.